Shall we start by just asking you to introduce yourself, please?
Hello, I'm Emma Bonin. I'm the inpatient psychologist on Poppy Ward at Green Lane Hospital.
Hi, I'm Jazz and I'm the assistant psychologist on Poppy Ward.
What was it like for you co-facilitating reflective practice with an art therapist?
It was a very interesting experience. What I noticed was how engaging it was. The process of doing an art therapy exercise at the start of the reflective practice session slowed down my thinking and enabled me to tune in to thoughts and emotions that I perhaps hadn't observed during the week.
What was different about the sessions, do you think, incorporating the art into the reflective practice?
I think it sort of acted as a really nice icebreaker with the staff. I've been in reflective practices before where everyone sort of feels a bit too awkward to be the first person to talk, or, you know, it can be quite difficult to get the conversation flowing. But I think, especially when we had a bigger group, having that object in front of them or that piece of work, really, they were already had something to chat about, so there wasn't that sort of tension around who's going first, what are we going to talk about. It was already there.
What I noticed was the enjoyment that engaging in the art exercise brought with it. And that seemed to create a cohesion amongst the group. So because we were all doing the same art exercise, it felt as if we were working very much as a team together.
How do you think the group responded to the art making during the sessions?
I think they responded quite well. I think they all seemed to get involved. Maybe it was the ones that were more collaborative. They seemed to be more open and less less closed off.
I thought there were a range of responses. Some participants really enjoyed the art exercises and were keen to engage straight away. Other people, I think, were quite anxious about participating in the art exercise, but this did seem to settle it over time, both in terms of each session. So I think from the start of the art exercise to the finish of it, I think people kind of gradually warmed up. If they were a little anxious, I think they began to get into it as they participated.
What do you think was different about these sessions for the staff who attended?
I think it was the creativity aspect. Having that creativity brought in with the fun aspect, there was a lot more laughing than I think I've ever experienced in any other reflective practice. And be a bit creative, be a bit silly, and have a bit of fun, I think probably was what really made the sessions.
There was a quicker engagement. So when working with a new group of people, it can take a little while for them to perhaps feel safe enough to open up and reflect on their experiences. I think the art exercises sort of sped up this process and enabled people to feel a little safer a little more quickly.
Thinking back to all the sessions, is there any particular session or art activity that stands out for you?
Yes, I think definitely this one where we did the big squiggle, and I think that's because to me that was the one where everyone was the most sort of open and chatty and collaborating facilitated a really sort of unified, open space where everyone could get involved.
The sessions that stand out, members of the team reflected on experiences that created a high level of emotion. I wondered whether there was something to do with the opening up that's created by the initial art exercise that then allowed people to be much more open about their emotional experiences. My sense was that, it certainly created quite a visceral response in me, and I think probably that was echoed in other people in the group. Helped us to have much better understanding, much more accurate understanding of some of the issues that people were struggling with, and hopefully led to providing a little bit more support for the people that were reflecting on those difficult challenges.
So looking at the photos that we have of what was made during reflective practice, is there anything about the artwork that stands out for you?
When we did the exercise where we drew around our hands, I found that much more difficult because of the physical contact that was going on. It felt a little bit more difficult to let go, but it was an interesting experience.
Is there anything else that you'd like to share or add, or anything that you'd like to go back to expand on?
Yes, I would especially like to emphasise the point of how beneficial I think the more collaborative exercises were. Having that space where they all sort of came together and just got stuck in and had fun with it felt really important for that team building aspect.
I think that using art in reflective practice, it seems to have created a kind of holding space where people have been able to take little risks in terms of becoming involved in the art, and I think that's translated then into how they've responded in the rest of the reflective practice session. What I notice is that there seems to be a particular depth of reflection, and I think that setting up the session with an art exercise has been quite unique in that.
Was it what you expected when we started working together?
Yeah, I think it was what I expected, but I think it worked better than I expected.